evening, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here. As you know, transportation is one of the key services that the island produces because we do this for ourselves and for our visitors. So tonight, consultation is very important to the ministry. I would like to first by congratulating you for being here, because by you being here it shows the importance of this industry to the island of St. Martin. But I would also like to congratulate the men and women in government that every single day have your interests at heart in terms of the policies that we have to deal with. They usually go unnoticed, oftentimes, but the things that a lot of people are not aware about is the fact that everything that we do in the ministry has to be vetted, discussed, and opinions have to be given, studies have to be made, and what the ministers do. We have a very easy task sometimes to just announce and give out the information. But when that information is given to you, oftentimes you don't realize the amount of work that go into it. And that work is done by the members of the ministry. And I would like to thank them for their commitment, not only to the Ministry of Traffic and Telecommunication and Tourism and all of the other ones that we deal with, but more so their commitment to ensuring that we develop a product that is sound, something that we all can leave for the next generation, and something that we all can be proud of as a people. So tonight is about a discussion in the form of a presentation that will be made by the department head. Actually tonight we are seeking your input into the direction, the directives that we have chosen for the industry of transportation. And that is why tonight we are approaching you for your input into this very important topic. The plans that we have moving forward are plans that we think would improve, number one, the level of transportation that we all share on our beautiful little island, but more so that the decisions that we will be making in the months to come, as we have indicated to our parliament, is one that will be a sound one, because it will be one that will include your input and your opinion on some of the areas that we will be embarking on in terms of forming a transportation policy that this country can build on. Being a country for about five years now, you can realize the challenges that we have in terms of assuming the responsibilities that we all share in the various areas and various ministries. And transportation is no less important to the others. That is why I once again congratulate you for being here in a very impressive numbers, and more people are coming in. We want to begin on time. It will not be a lot of information in terms of speeches. We will delve right into the presentation by our department head, Ms. Gibbs, and you will be able to hold your questions until the end of the presentation, and then there will be a question and answer session at the end that you will be able to then voice your opinion about the topic that has been raised, or ask a question, and hopefully we as a panel will be able to address it tonight, or add it to the list of concerns that we have moving forward. So it is my pleasure as your minister to be here this evening with you, so that together we can make this thing work. Anything that is good, we always try to make better. And tonight's aim is to make the transportation industry on St. Martin a better one. So I thank you.
several months and years, we have received a lot of concerns about various activities that's happening in the public transportation industry. And I'm going to sum up the concerns because basically we looked at these concerns and this was the premise for the changes that we made based on the feedback that we received from yourself. One of the primary areas for concern was routing, issues with the help and assistant drivers, lack of training or not enough training, terminals for dispatching, gypsies, controls, and the Public Transportation Committee. Those were the primary ones. What we decided to do is to divide it into two parts, short-term and long-term measures. Reason being, we have legislation that dates back to 1969 and it's extremely old, and it doesn't take into consideration the changes that have developed in St. Martin. St. Martin has a very dynamic economy and over the years has grown very, very fast. Unfortunately, legislation does take a very long time to make changes. We also do have a national decree that's also based on the national ordinance. So what the first thing we decided to do was make changes to the national decree, which is based on the 1969. And what we did, where there were not a lot of definitions, we took the opportunity to expand on it and make short-term measures. And those short-term measures specifically would try to address some of the more pressing issues that we got complaints about. I can go through those short-term measures, would you? One of the things we received a lot of complaints about was training, and one of the things we have decided to do to implement training to improve the service. So the training will focus on rules of the road, it will focus on customer service, culture, knowing what's going on in St. Martin, and basic first aid. And this will be a training that government will provide to all public transportation operators, bus, taxi, help drivers, permit holders. Another area that we received a lot of complaints about was the medical requirement about persons from the various associations indicated that it was very important that drivers and operators, because it could be a very stressful type of job, that they should be medically fit. So one of the things that will be implemented will be a medical requirement or a medical screening. This will be followed by identification. This would assist the department in being able to be more effective in their task in assisting the drivers on the road, and also for you to be able to see and identify your colleagues. And identification would be a personal identification that has all of your information on it, which would be your permit information, so it's easy to read at first glance. So the inspection department can easily look at it and see that you are a qualified, registered driver, and also for your fellow colleagues to recognize whether or not you are certified to be operating a public transportation vehicle. Another change would be the applications will be changing to English. Right now there's not a specific application, but for now we would like to put it in English, and there'll be some additional information that will be required, such as a crib number, census registration. This is all to help us to be able to have a better administration. One of the things the ministry is going to continue with is the moratorium, which will be basically no more issuing for the moment of bus and taxi permits. And this is to give the ministry an opportunity to be able to assess the situation. One of the complaints we have had that there might be a possibility of oversaturation, and that's something we take very seriously, and we would like to prevent that. So in the meantime, there'll be a limitation on the issuing of permits for bus and taxi, and this is to help us to conduct our study to be able to see what is actually happening in the system. This is just an example of what the ID card could possibly look like. So it will have your picture on it, it will have your license number, registration number on there, and it will have from the ministry. And there'll be one for the permit holder, and there'll be also one for either the help or the assistant driver. And this ID card could be used for bus, taxi, school bus.
Do we have to pay for it? Do we have to pay for the ID?
No,
Okay.
not at this point.
Okay.
But this is just a sample of what it could look like. Now on to the long-term measures. The reasons these are long-term measures because we have to change the national ordinance, which is the ordinance from 1969. And one of the things we like to do is to modernize this legislation so that it is more conducive to what's happening now and whatever might be the future development. One of the big issues that we have heard a lot about is the lack of routing and oversaturation on more popular routes. So one of the things that's going to be implemented would be a defined routing system, not just for the domestic routes, but also for the international routes. Some of the discussions that we have had were complaints regarding how our bus and taxi drivers are treated when they cross the border onto the French side. So that's one thing that we definitely would like to synchronize with the French side and regulate, but also in addition regulate the domestic routes. The public transportation operators, better known as the help and assistant drivers, one of the things that we have had a lot of feedback about is the ability to be able to have a help and assistant driver in a very timely manner. So it will be amended in such a way that there will be a pool of assistant or help drivers that's already pre-certified. So you would no longer have to come into government. When you need to, you can always recruit from anybody who is been certified to be a public transportation operator. And that will save you a lot of time in terms of having to make that application and go back and forth. There will already be persons who are certified and qualified, and certified being that they would have had to go through a screening process and do the certification exam. We're going to amend and update some of the administrative control mechanisms. One of the complaints that we have had is that the department has not been, that there's some difficulty in being able to control some of the activities that's going on. So one of the things that we're going to do is change it so that the ministry will have more direct influence on the type of control mechanisms that they can use in terms of the penalties. Certification for the vehicles. We definitely would like to try to improve the level of service, and one of the ways of doing that is the type of vehicles, the standards that we're going to put in place across the board for the type of vehicles that every bus and taxi should have. Terminals and dispatching. Right now we don't have a central location, and sometimes it could get very, very congested, very crowded, and we recognize that's a difficulty for drivers, especially during the very busy rush hour seasons and rush hour periods. So we like to make sure that we have designated terminals and dispatching areas where those buses could be dispatched to the various districts, and that's in connection with the routing system. The G and the T is going to be combined, so it will be just G's. And then for the school busing, school bus, currently now there's not a specific school bus designation, so we're going to have a school bus specifically for school busing routes and GPS system. And then consultation is very, very important, so we want to make sure that we have a constant flow of information between yourselves and the ministry, that any changes or updates or upgrades that we're making is within part of your full consultation, so the Public Transportation Committee will be reinstalled and will help advise the ministry on major policy and legislative changes. So for the most part, that's the major changes for the legislation. The national decree that has to do with the training and medical, that should be within the next few months. And the national ordinance we anticipate will be at the end of the year.
G plate, number one, was meant to be used for school bus, transport of workers, church, and all of the other unregulated transportation that is out there. The T was only meant to do tours, and there was always a capacity set for him to do tours. It was not meant for him to become a one-man business like they are operating today, because the more we complain, the bigger they get, because we are opening their eyes. So we need to stop trying to patch up for them, enforce laws that needs to be enforced, so that taxi drivers will survive. Because businessman is not going to come here to get no training by you. The businessman is doing whatever he wants to do. He gets carte blanche. But we, the taxi driver that has one vehicle to operate, it's always been pinpoint about economical affairs and who got to tell us what to do and how to do it. But we're not seeing no benefit of work coming to us. All we're seeing is rules put on us to keep us more down than we already are. And that's unacceptable, because I feel now we are playing with our integrity. My second question is the routing system for the buses. We talk about routing system, but before we go and implement a route, we need to implement routes, we need to implement rules of what is a kleine autobus and what is a grote autobus. Because that's where we problem lay. We have people that have multiple buses that is putting out there that affecting the guy who has one bus. And the grote and the kleine autobus doesn't mean to say that a grote autobus you will have multiple buses, because it still remains a 8-man sack. And we have right now, we have many companies out there that are using BUS lane that is an 8-man sack on a company. That needs to be fixed. Once that's fixed, bus drivers are not a problem. That's the biggest problem that we have. 2, the 3 are medical. Our medical system that we are talking about, we are only talking about trying to see who is healthy. All these guys are healthy, what's that? They all are healthy. We don't need that.
Mr. Arundel, I just want to interject and understand that you need a question so that the panel can answer, and then again, in the interest of participation, we would like you to just move on so that we can get to the other.
Good. So that was the other one, the medical. And the other one is the training. Why is it every time that taxi drivers have to go to training? Why isn't it a car rental company got to go to training? He sends people to pick up, to deliver a car with a short pants and slippers on the foot. I don't hear no training for that one. But they're telling me about how I must dress to deal with a tourist. But he's doing the same thing with me, dealing with a tourist. So why is it all the time we are selected to train only taxi drivers and nobody else? And they're doing the same thing we're doing. And I thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Regarding training, the training is not just limited to taxi drivers, but the training is for all public transportation operators. So that includes bus, taxi, and school buses at the moment, as it pertains to the training. As it pertains to the routing, one of the other details, because it's very difficult to go into all to the in-depth details of how the routing will work, there is going to be a reclassification of the type of buses that will be used on the different routes. So that comes with part of the routing. As it pertains to the G and T plates, when we say combined, the T's will be for tours, and it's going to be very specific what they can do for tours. The G plates now, the legislation, the law just says unregulated transportation, and it really doesn't give any substance to how these operators function. So by giving, we're going to give a little bit more weight to the T's, and the G's, which will be eliminated, is actually going to be school buses. And the school bus will have its own brand new legislation with details about how it should operate and function, etc.
Then you need one more in the system.
It's not one more. The G and the T is simply combined, so it will just be tours and school bus, as opposed to say the G, which is
Group transport?
It is group transport, but it's not very specific. It just says unregulated group. It's not specific. The law is not specific enough to provide us with the necessary tools and support that we need. So the G will now be school bus. It'll have whole new legislation with everything completely defined. And tours will be tours.
My question is, number one, I would like for the minister to make sure that the taxi bus license become sole holders. It's our own, not the government. Because if I die, my daughter have to act 3 months. The Indian on the front street that have a store when he died, his children continue. That's number one. Give us our own license. So in case we want to sell it for a retirement, we can do that. That's number one. Number two, you made a statement that the government will determine what kind of vehicle and if our vehicle is up to par. That's great. In Aruba, Martinique, Guadeloupe, once you have a taxi or a bus permit, you go to the bank and you get it without a cent. Are you going to make sure that's going to happen for us also? Then it's great because you cannot come and tell me I shouldn't have a taxi from 1995 that's in good shape. I can run it.
To answer your questions regarding the vehicle, as I indicated before, San Martin is very dynamic all through the world. And one of the things you have seen in public transportation, especially in all our societies, public transportation is used by those that don't have access to a vehicle. So it could be somebody who is handicapped, somebody who needs special sort of seating, etc. If you look in even Curacao and Aruba, the national bus system in Curacao and Aruba do have specifically designed buses. So if a person is handicapped, they can get on a bus. If a person has any sort of physical challenges, they can access public transportation because it's a social service catering for all. And a lot of the times is those persons in our population that does not have the necessary resources to have their own vehicle. So we have to make sure that public transportation keeps up with the times. So that's why we indicated that there need to be some amendments to the type of vehicles that we have, and of course, how it's implemented over time, that will definitely be discussed. But you gave the example of Aruba, so I'm giving it back to you. They have the exact same
I'm tired of
changes.
listening to all the countries. We have our own country here. Why we should be watching somebody else that be doing nothing?
But it's not about watching. We have, as I indicated before, one of the things about making changes to the type of vehicles that we have is to be able to cater to the entire population. Not just, and I give an example, not just the able-bodied, but somebody who's in a wheelchair, somebody that has crutches. They need to be able to get on a bus. How will they be able to do that? We have a lot of international regulations that we have to comply to as a country in terms of environmental standards. Those are things we have to take into consideration.
Hello. Mr. Priest.
Mass transportation, it's owned by the government. They have the big bus in which they pick up wheelchairs. These guys that have a small bus, they can't pick it up. Aruba and Curacao have mass transportation, a big convoy bound. Okay?
Mr. Slack, before you begin, allow the Miss to answer the question. You still have not gotten to the second answer as yet. Thank you very much, sir.
As it pertains to the license, Mr. Lake, as it pertains to the license, one of the changes that we do believe that in order to professionalize the industry, the license is a business. It is a business entity, so sole proprietor. And we would like to give persons all of the opportunity that your business license will be. You will have the public transportation license will be like a business license, so it is yours.
Why not make it an EV like what we proposed a couple of years to the river?
An EV?
Yeah, economical value. Make it an economical value.
We're going to follow the standards that we have now within our core legislation, so prior to NZBV, the public transportation license will be considered like a sole proprietorship. It is yours, you can sell it.
That's this now?
No, in the future.
First of all, the moratorium that we're talking about, how are you going to control that? When from minister to minister, they determine whether they're going to keep the moratorium or not. It was done by Commissioner Franz Richardson, it was done by Minister Romain Pantoflet, and it was done by Minister Franklin Myers. They just unilaterally lifted the moratorium and added buses and taxi for political reasons. So how are you going to control that? Are you going to put it in such a way that Parliament will be the only one to change that moratorium and not a particular minister? That's question number one. Do I have to wait on the answer first?
That would be ideal if you can wait for the answer, sir. Thank you very much.
The purpose of the moratorium, as Ms. Gibbs said, was for us to control and study the industry to see how we can deal with the saturation that we're experiencing right now. If it was up to me, I wish we didn't have a moratorium, and I'll tell you why. Because we would have had opportunity for more bus and taxi providers on the street, because we would have had a season that didn't have an up and a down effect. But because of the fact that today or yesterday, for instance, there were no cruise ships in town, most of the taxi drivers and yourself really didn't have any kind of work because of no visitors on the island. The reason for the moratorium should never be a political one. And I think that, and I told this to Parliament as well, as long as I am minister and I don't have good cause or good reason to lift a moratorium, it will remain in place. And you know, the most I can give you is my word on that. But I'll tell you that it is not necessarily about a moratorium on taxis and bus licenses, more so than it is about finding work, consistent work for the industry to thrive on.